In the early 1800s, there was an English man, very influential with Christians in his time, very controversial also because of his Christian thoughts and insights. He's famous for his quotes, and he was called by his peers Prince of Preachers. I singled out one of his quotes and would like to read to you. "If I'll not submit to God," he said, "my faith is a lie. My hope is delusion, my prayers an insult, my peace is presumption, and my end will be despair." Now let's unpack these statements. If I'll not submit to God, my faith is a lie. My faith is a deception, is the opposite of truth. Jesus, in the Gospel of John, chapter 14, verse 15, said, "If you love me, keep my commandments." When we know what God's commandments are for us, we should follow them. If we don't obey what we know about Jesus, our faith is a lie. We know one thing and we live in a different way. If I'll not submit to God, my hope is a delusion. My hope is a mistake, an error. The half-brother of Jesus, James, in his book, chapter 1, verse 8, said the following: "Their loyalty is divided between God and the world, and they are unstable in everything they do." In another translation, it talks about a double-souled man, a person with two souls. We are divided between following God and the world. So we put our hope in things of the world instead of walking in faith that we know it's the hope that we have in God. If I will not submit to God, my prayer is an insult. It's interesting to note that this word insult can also be translated as a abuse, a disrespect. Imagine that. My prayer is an abuse or disrespect. In Matthew chapter 15, verse 8, quoted from Isaiah 29:13, Jesus said this: "These people honor me with their lips, but their hearts are far from me." So it's pure lip service. When our hearts are far from God, we follow our own will instead of God's will. And we learned from the Lord's Prayer, Jesus prayed, "Let your will," meaning God's will, "be done on earth as it is in heaven." If I'll not submit to God, my peace is presumption. It's an assumption only. It is a supposition, it's a guess. That's the kind of peace I will think I'll have if I not submit to God. Jesus, in the Gospel of John, chapter 14, verse 27, said like this: "Peace I leave with you, my peace I give you. I do not give to you as the world gives." And we see again the word world displayed in this verse. Peace, as we know, it is a fruit of the Spirit. It is the peace that comes from God. In Philippians chapter 4, verses 6 and 7, we read, "Do not be anxious about anything, but in every situation, by prayer and petition, with thanksgiving, present your requests to God. And the peace of God, which transcends all understanding, will guard your hearts and your minds in Christ Jesus." You can tell that is the peace of God totally different. And we'll guard not only our hearts, but also our minds. That's what brings us peace. If I'll not submit to God, lastly, my end will be despair, meaning I'll be in distress, in anguish. For the non-Christian, as we read in John chapter 3, verse 18, whoever believes in Jesus is not condemned, but whoever does not believe stands condemned already, because they do not have and believe in the name of God's one and only Son, Jesus. For the non-Christian, the end will be despair, because it means eternal damnation. For a Christian, if I not submit to God, my end will be despair, means, as it says in Proverbs 14, verse 12, and Proverbs 16, verse 25, that there is a way that seems right to a man, but its end is the way of death. If we don't follow, if we don't submit to God, our end will be despair, because we will think we are heading in one direction, but actually we are not. We are going a way that is not God's way for our lives. I pray that you will follow and submit to God in all areas of your life. So if you submit to God, your faith will be true, your hope will be sure, your prayer will go to God, your peace will be reality, and your end will be glorious. May God richly bless you.
Go and make disciples of all nations.
Join us on our mission to bring Jesus to people and people to Jesus.
To learn more, please visit our website at itinerantchurch.org.